What's up, YouTube? Are you struggling to sell your film? Well, you're not alone. So let's try this instead.
I'm going to shoot something really big.
Let's face it, you cannot swing a dead cat without hitting somebody who's calling themselves a filmmaker. Most filmmakers that I come in contact with really know how to make stuff. The problem that they have is selling it. So you make a feature with your friends and you get money together and you do all of this stuff and you're left with this big paperweight that you're trying to offload. It's not that you didn't love making it. It's not that you didn't love working on it and writing it, but now the real work begins. It turns into almost an albatross of how do I recoup those dollars? How do I get my money back? And not only that, but get recognized for this film. And the old way was you wrote a script and you went from studio to studio trying to, sell it and kind of Francis Ford Coppola your way through it. Well, those days are long gone. They buy for a whole different set of reasons. They used to buy great ideas. Now they buy stuff that has an audience or that has some kind of market proof that it's ready to go. So everything's sort of been made transactional. And I think film schools still teach, hey, if you make something good enough, they'll discover you. Well, that's simply not true. They're not looking for good ideas. As I always say, they don't have an access to good ideas problem. They have an access to audience problem. They are more concerned about selling ad units. They are more concerned about selling movie tickets, and they're more concerned about selling subscriptions than anything else. They're not in the celebrate art business. So what do we do? What do we do at this point to say, I need to do something different? I need to make something happen. I'm gonna go over in this video some of the problems, some of the issues, the barriers that are in our way. And if we understand those barriers, we can either go around them, over them, under them, whatever. But if we know the problem and it's identifiable, we can do a lot. There's tons of things we can do to have impact on this industry, make the films we always wanted to be known for, and sell them. So there are 4 key problems. 1, studios only buy from content providers. They don't buy from individuals. Next, it's hard to get into that supply chain. After that, studios and content providers have entire development departments that button up those projects, package them, get the decks ready, get everything ready. How do we do that against that level of resources? And lastly, only a minority of these projects actually get paid for and made and released. Going to these film markets, you see thousands of films at these film markets that are trying to be sold, and only a handful of them ever get made. So what do we do? Well, don't worry, right? 1, you're not alone. We're independent. We have a lot of things we can do to combat that. We're in better positions in some areas of the business than they are. So we can use our smallness and our nimbleness and our ability to make decisions quickly to our advantage. So let's dive into that and kind of unpack this and figure out how we can clear the roadway, clear the barriers, so we have a much smoother path to selling our original content. So let's start with the first one, the idea that streamers and studios only buy from content providers, not necessarily individuals, or at least when they do, it's fairly rare. One of the ways we can do this, and this is, you're gonna say, Alex, it's easier said than done, but the very first projects I did when I was completely unknown went through this way. I created proofs of concept. So that meant sizzle reels, decks, pilot script, or if it was unscripted or documentary style, I was at least providing outlines or treatments. And I brought those things to existing production companies that were already suppliers of content to those studios and streamers. So co-production is an amazing way to get this done. One of the ways that you can find co-productions is go to these digital conferences like Digital Hollywood or MIP TV. I know they're expensive. I know that they cost. We have to invest in our careers. But let's say you pay the entry fee, it might be $1,000, right, to get in for 3 days of stuff. But once you pay that entry fee, you're in with buyers. They do not look at you the same as if you were just meeting them at some networking event. You paid the entry fee, so that must mean that you're through that door for a reason. So I sold my very first web series for $350,000 because I went up to the moderator of a panel, and I went to a panel on distribution. And there were people from Sony and, executives from all over the world. And everybody flooded those executives, and there was this moderator who was sitting on the side and nobody was talking to him. And I went up and I said, hey, I have this project that looks like this. Is there anybody you think you know who you could introduce me to that will be interested in at least hearing a pitch? And he sent me to one person who said, you know what, that's not what we're looking for this year, but I know who else you need to talk to. I ended up talking to that person, and we sold that within days of meeting that person for $350K. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting in a much different place because I invested in my career. And look how much simpler that is than hoping you meet the right person, when you can actively take and participate in figuring out a co-production deal with somebody in an environment that is there to buy. Go to the place where they're making those decisions. Don't go and hope that you catch them in their office and they're in a good mood. Or you send them some email that may or may not land on their desk. And if it does, they're probably not going to do anything with it. So invest in yourself, invest in developing projects that look like co-productions. Co-productions are such a great way to utilize somebody else's authority as your own and give them a big piece of your project. I'd rather have 40% of something than 100% of nothing. So be willing to make that deal. Next, it's difficult to get into that supply chain. So how do we do it as individuals? We have to create the environment and the conditions for there to be interest in us. It isn't just a good idea anymore. You with a good idea, they might give you $5K and make some weird ass, back end deal with you, but that's gonna be tough to make just based on a good idea. If we go in just trying to mesmerize these people, it's a low percentage shot. So what do I say all the time? They aren't interested in celebrating art. That's our job. They're interested in selling movie tickets, subscriptions, and ad units. They're interested in eyeballs. They're not interested in anything else, so let's give them that. We do not need to be the president of the internet in order to have impact on the industry. All we have to do is create an audience big enough to say, hey, my work affects this very particular group of people, and that particular group of people are the same people that are in your audience. So let's start making things there. If you infuse X amount of dollars into my audience where it meets your audience, we've got real possibility of drawing the eyeballs you need, and I can provide you the content that entertains them. Projects have to be buttoned up. They have to be packaged correctly. So what are you gonna need? You are gonna need an airtight one sheet. That is basically your project at a glance. Next, you're gonna need a dynamite pitch deck. And that can be no more than, I would say, 10 or 11 pages. You have to keep it so brief. You do not need to do all the heavy lifting. You do a deck that is super concise and gives them wanting more at the end. You're going to do that. I'll leave a link to another video down below that allows you to actually download a pitch deck template. I also have a pitch course that'll walk you step by step through a pitch. If you want the link, it'll be down below too. It's cheap. It's helped a lot of people. Go for it. Buy it, don't buy it, but there's a lot of resources in there. Next, you'll need a sizzle reel. I do sizzle reels all the time. Sizzle reels are these little microcosms. It's not a movie trailer. One of the things people try to do is they try to create movie trailers without making the whole movie. Movie trailers come from somebody who made a complete work, and they've got a bunch of different stuff they can draw from, and so it's really a great highlight reel that allows people to see, the whole story. we can't go out and shoot pieces of it and expect it to fit together in the same way. So what I tend to do is I tend to create little vertical slices, or I'll do a scene, or I'll do something like that. Just something to get them in and pique their interest and say, I get what you're making here. That's all it needs to be. Think of it as a motion picture version of a PowerPoint, that where you're laying it out. You're laying it out, the story, in a really simple, easy to understand, but exciting way. They just want to know, does this make sense and does this fit into our mandate? And then obviously a buttoned up pilot script or an outline or a treatment if you're doing non-scripted. And finally, the problem of only a handful of films ever getting selected to get made. Well, one thing we can't do is make one film and try to sell it over an 8-year period, like where we just die on that hill over and over again. We need to do something different. Most people think they need to run a production company. A production company is a company that makes the stuff. They're the C-stands and the cameras and the trucks and all of that stuff, and it's sexy and it's awesome, but the margins on production are really low, and it's really tough to make unless you're, at the highest level. It's really tough to make a living, right? I get that we have to pay the bills. I understand that, but the more you do that, the more you do that. And you're never gonna get known for the kind of work you've always wanted to be known for by making lawyer commercials or dentist commercials or local commercials or even corporate media. There isn't a way to sort of have a direct path into, oh, now I get to make feature films at a high level. So what do? What kind of company do we make? We create a content development company, a film development company, which means we're developing 6 to 10 projects, and we have a host of projects that we can draw from. That's more bites at the apple. Production companies, you get paid for your time. As soon as your time runs out, you stop making money. And so you always have to keep that pipeline full. And the more you do that, and the less the work looks like the kind of work you've wanted to be known for, simply because you got to keep the doors open, the harder it's going to be. So again, run a content development company, not a production company. Now, I could talk about this stuff for hours, but I think those are the 4 key situations that occur in the average independent filmmaker's world. So I've just given you some real solutions that worked for me on how to solve those problems. Put your emphasis on solving the problems the way that I told you to do it, and your life is going to be way easier. People will see you differently in the industry. Instead of you going in, man, isn't my project amazing, and I'm going to mesmerize the hell out of you, so you guys just give me a big check. That's just not a business. The business of solving these problems that I've just discussed with you, that is how you run the business. So I hope this has helped. Don't forget to push the like button. Don't forget to push the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the little bell so that you're notified of upcoming videos. And I can't wait to see you in the next one, and I'm talking to you.